Welcome to today's lesson on multiplying with mixed numbers. Today we're going to discuss how you can multiply fractions with other mixed numbers. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to focus on two different ways that you can multiply fractions by mixed numbers. We're going to focus on visuals as well as the algorithm. Now to start, we need to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. A mixed number has your whole and your part written separately, whereas an improper fraction takes the whole and puts it into your numerator. So let's see how we can write 1 1/3 as an improper fraction. We need to count how many thirds are shaded in. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 thirds. So that means that 1 1/3 written as an improper fraction is 4 thirds. So I'm going to rewrite my equation. We're going to be multiplying 1/2 times 4 thirds. All right, let's go ahead and start breaking this apart. So we have 1 1/3 shaded in, and we need to find half of it, which means we need to find a group of 1/2. I'm going to split this fraction bar into halves so that we can find 1/2 of 1 1/3. Now that I've split it in half, I need to shade in 1/2 that's going to be represented. So I'm going to shade in 1/2 of my whole and then 1/2 of my 1/3. Now this is going to tell me what 1/2 of 1 1/3 is. All I have to do is count the pieces. But I need to make sure I'm only counting the pieces that have been shaded in twice. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So I'm going to put that as my numerator. Now I need to figure out my denominator. My denominator is how many pieces we have in the whole. We don't have halves and we don't have thirds anymore. We broke it up even further. Let's count how many pieces we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 pieces in the whole. That means 6 is going to be my new denominator. So let's take a look at our algorithm. If we multiply 1 times 4, we get 4 as our numerator. If we multiply 2 times 3, we get 6 as our denominator. So you can either use fraction bars to count how many pieces you have when trying to multiply a fraction by a mixed number, or you can change your mixed number into an improper fraction and multiply across. But we're not quite done yet. We can actually simplify this further. If we divide our numerator and our denominator by 2, then we can simplify this to 2 thirds. Let's walk through a practice problem together. Jonah has 2½ chocolate bars in his lunchbox. He wants to share with his 3 friends. If they share the chocolate bar equally, what fraction of the chocolate bar will each person receive? Well, let's set up our equation. We know that we're multiplying 2½ chocolate bars, but by what fraction? We know that there are 4 people in all. We have Jonah plus his 3 friends. So that means that each person would get 1/4 of the 2½ chocolate bars. But how much chocolate is that? Let's set up our equation. We want to find 1/4 of the 2½ chocolate bars. Now, as you can see, we already have our diagram on the screen representing 2½ chocolate bars. So now we need to find 1/4. We need to split our 2½ chocolate bars into fourths. There we go. Now we need to shade in 1/4 of the 2½. So I'm shading in 1/4 of our first chocolate bar, 1/4 of our second chocolate bar, and then 1/4 of our half of a chocolate bar. So as you can see, we have many spaces that are shaded in twice. Let's go ahead and count those pieces because those will be our numerator. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that have been shaded in red and brown. Now we need to find out what our denominator is. Remember, our denominator is how many pieces we have in the whole. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We now have 8 pieces in the whole. That means that each person will receive 5/8 of a full chocolate bar. Let's try another word problem together. Since we used fraction bars on our last word problem, let's practice our algorithm with this one. Lucy is baking a recipe that requires 3 1/3 cup of flour. She decides to cut the recipe in half. How much flour will Lucy need? Well, if she's finding half of 3 1/3, then we need to write out our equation as 1/2 times 3 1/3. Now to continue with our algorithm, we need to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. That means we need to take our whole and add it to our numerator. We know that 3/3 is 1 whole. So 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 3/3 is going to equal 9/3 or 3 wholes. And now all we have to do is add that to our mixed number 1/3, and that's going to give us our improper fraction, which is 10/3. So now we just have to multiply across. 1 times 10 equals 10, and 2 times 3 equals 6. But we're not quite done yet. We can still simplify this by dividing our numerator and our denominator by 2. And that's going to give us 5/3. But again, we can still go a step further. This is an improper fraction, so we can change this into a mixed number. So we know that 3/3 is 1 whole. So 1 whole is going to represent 3/3, and then that leaves 2/3 left over. So we know that Lucy will need 1 2/3 cups of flour. Let's take a moment to review what we've learned in today's lesson. There's 2 different ways that we can multiply mixed numbers by fractions. You can use the algorithm, or you can use fraction bars. So we have 1 1/2 bars shaded in, and we're going to try to group this into 1/2. So 1/2 of 1 1/2 shaded in is represented like this. Now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 parts that have been shaded in twice. Now we need to count how many pieces we have in a whole to find our denominator. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we were to do this using the algorithm, we would rewrite our fraction, which is 1/2, and convert our mixed number into an improper fraction. And then we can multiply across. 1 times 3 equals 3, and 2 times 2 equals 4.